Welcome back to Informed Sources. The governor's race is certainly dominating the headlines ahead of Tuesday's Mississippi election, but there are several other statewide offices on the ballot, including the lieutenant governor's race. Incumbent Republican Delbert Hosemann is facing a challenge from Democrat D. Ryan Grover, who ran unsuccessfully for the Oxford Board of Aldermen just a few years back. You know, the lieutenant governor is there to appoint senators to committees and also name the leadership there. You've been there and watched that happen as well on the other side of the aisle. How would you characterize Hosemann's first term there?
I don't particularly like Delbert Hosemann. We've clashed on several occasions. I don't think he's very conservative, and I've not really liked the policies that he's pushed. So I'm not a big fan of his or his policies that he likes.
Grover is a political newcomer. How do you expect him to do?
I think he'll surprise some people. He's very smart. He's brilliant. He is a business owner. He's a hard worker. He's very social media and tech savvy, which I think is a sleeper for some of those that have been in this a long time and don't know how to really take advantage of social media. He has certainly been doing that, and I think he's going to surprise some people.
All right, that's one of several we'll be watching. In the meantime, in the Secretary of State's race, incumbent Republican Michael Watson is going for a second term against Democrat Ty Pinkins. Pinkins, an attorney and military veteran, was a late addition to the race after the previous Democratic nominee dropped out due to health concerns there. Now, in the Secretary of State's race here, he served in the Senate before, Watson has. Has he been effective, do you think, as Secretary of State? A lot of times they look over the elections, and it seems like he wants to put a heavy hand on that as well.
Yeah, I think he's been very effective. He's actually, of all the statewide elected, he's probably the one that I like the most. And I think he's very effective. I think he's been good. I don't think he's been partisan on anything that he's done. So I think that's going to go very well for him. I didn't know this guy's name until you just said it, that's running against him. So I don't think anybody knows who he is.
Ty Pinkins is an attorney. He was also running in another race, a statewide race. He was actually running against Roger Wicker, I believe, for the 2024 race when he decided to join this campaign as well. How do you think he will do?
Oh, I disagree with you. I think a lot of people know who Ty Pinkins is. Ty Pinkins has been out on the grounds. Even though he wasn't going to run for Senate for another year, he has certainly been digging in. He's very popular down in the Delta area. When the storm hit Rolling Fork, which was his hometown, he was the first one to step forward and take leadership and make sure that they had all the supplies that they have. He has a lot of equity down in the Delta and as well up here. He's brilliant, and I think he will be an excellent Secretary of State, and I do think he's going to give him a run for his money.
Maybe 10 votes.
We shall see. You know, the office of Mississippi Attorney General is also on the ballot. Republican incumbent Lynn Fitch is being challenged by Democrat Greta Kemp Martin. Martin is a Jackson-based attorney and currently serves as litigation director at Disability Rights Mississippi. You know, if you look at Lynn Fitch, she's the one who argued the Roe versus Wade decision. How does that impact this race, do you think?
Well, the Republicans are, by and large, all happy with the Roe versus Wade decision. So her attaching herself to that and being a part of that, she legitimately was, it is going to bring out people that are very much supporting her. Maybe even more so than some of the other statewide races. I think she's known with conservatives and Republicans, and I think they're going to come out and they're going to be happy to vote for her because of that.
You know, Martin, if you look at her, she makes a statement that she believes women in Mississippi are worse off because of what Lynn Fitch did.
Absolutely.
How do you think that will impact the race?
I think there are still a lot of women who are very, very passionate about their need and their desire to have choice and control over their own bodies. I think there's still a lot of passion built up around that. I think that felt that they lost power when they lost Roe versus Wade, and the way they're going to get that power back is on Tuesday.
All right, we shall certainly see. And when we come back, we're going to be focusing on the state legislature and the issues that will affect Mississippi in the next 4 years. That's coming up next on Informed Sources.